Right now in New Hampshire, there's a bill that's advancing through the state legislature that looks to repeal the ban on conversion therapy for LGBTQ+ kids. The practice of trying to change someone's sexual orientation is banned in 20 states because of the higher rates of suicide among those who go through this, in heavy quotes here, treatment. Maura Barrett spoke to a survivor about the lifelong impact a program like this had on her.
I remember being, an early teenager with laying under the covers at night, praying and pleading with God that these feelings would go away.
Jessica Ritter knew from a relatively young age that she had feelings for women. Under pressure, she came out to her family in high school.
I just remember sobbing and telling them, I think I love a woman. They cried, I cried, and then we prayed, and then next day, the church leadership was at our house. Literally less than a week later, I was in conversion therapy 3 days a week.
The American Medical Association defines conversion therapy as any form of intervention that attempts to change someone's sexual orientation or behaviors. The way it's done can vary immensely, ranging from talk therapy, averse conditioning like electric shock or isolation, or even hypnosis.
I was actually in a small group of women ranging from 25 up to 69 or something, I think was the oldest lady. And it was people with sex addiction, drug addiction.
So your attraction to women was put in that same bucket as those
Correct.
Things?
Yeah. There's the guilt of I had let my family down. And there was also this feeling of there's something wrong with me and I'm dirty.
Nearly 700,000 LGBTQ+ adults and an estimated 57,000 children today are survivors of conversion therapy. They're called survivors for a reason. A recent UCLA study found LGBTQ+ people who experience the practice are almost twice as likely to attempt suicide.
As its essence, conversion therapy is telling LGBT people, you're not good as you are, something that is, by the way, impossible to do, as those conversion therapies have never showed any success in actually, quote unquote, converting people's sexual orientations. I don't think it's ethical, but also it's never been successful.
For Jessica, the effects spiraled.
Was definitely an alcoholic for a good bit of time. Had one real suicide attempt that was pretty much ignored. Was diagnosed with depression by my conversion therapist and put on a lot of different medications. I think the most I was taking was 3 different antidepressant medications and then an anti-anxiety medication.
All at once?
All at once. So I ended up doing that for about 10 years.
The practice of conversion therapy on youth is banned in 20 U.S. states, but that's limited to licensed healthcare professionals. The laws do not cover religious or other providers. Federal legislation has been introduced in Congress to prohibit conversion therapy, but there's been no movement. Jessica, now 29 years old, is off those medications, in a successful relationship with her girlfriend, and seeing a new therapist to reverse what she calls brainwashing. She made the decision to cut off communication with her family.
Knowing what you know now, what would you say to younger you going through all this?
I would definitely want to tell myself that, one, you're going to be okay and life's going to be really beautiful, but it's going to be really hard. Who you are is enough, and God loves you, and there's going to be a group of people, your chosen family, that really love you. And a lot of what you're going to lose, you're going to gain so much more.
So Maura is joining us now. Maura, it's so emotional, to hear the conversations around this. And it's not just New Hampshire that's putting this conversion therapy back into the spotlight. Tell us more about what's happening in South Carolina, what we're seeing in different pockets of the country.
Well, South Carolina, similarly at a local level, is trying to repeal a ban that has been put into place. And like we mentioned in the piece there, 20 states do have this protection against LGBTQ youth. There's other states that have introduced bills, but that leaves 20 plus more states that have nothing, that say that this practice is okay, whether it's done by a licensed therapist or in a religious setting. And so something that Meyer, the researcher I spoke to, points out is that when you see this happening combined with the anti-trans bills regarding sports in several states. We're looking at the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, the banning of LGBTQ plus books in libraries in certain states, all comes around the central idea that same-sex attraction, being in the LGBTQ community, is wrong. And that's incredibly damaging. That's the research that he was looking at. And so while you look at these bans and it says that a licensed therapist can't practice in those states, but a religious person can, there's the confusion around, whether or not it really is banned, right? But Meyer points out that the fact that there is a ban, there is a push for a federal ban in this sense, sends out the public messaging that this is so damaging, that from a human rights perspective, that this practice is wrong and can be so detrimental to people, adding on to the fact that he mentioned there, and I want to emphasize that from a scientific standpoint, the conversion therapy, quote unquote, has never been successful. Right. Hallie.
Maura Barrett, thank you so much for your reporting. And we should note that if you are struggling or somebody you know is struggling, please know there is help. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-TALK.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.